Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. President Lee Jae-myung departs Friday on an overseas trip that opens with meetings with the CEOs of AI giants in San Francisco before continuing on to state visits in 3 South American countries and meeting with Koreans residing in Germany. The Trump administration has finalized tariffs of up to 12.5% on South Korea and dozens of other trading partners over forced labor import concerns as a temporary 10% global tariff expires. Foreign Minister Cho Hyun joined regional counterparts at the ASEAN Regional Forum in Manila to call for a return to dialogue with North Korea and reaffirm denuclearization, as Pyongyang skipped the meeting for a second straight year. We begin with President Lee Jae-myung's departure for the U.S. today. One highlight of his 11-day trip to the Americas is his meeting with big tech firms on Friday, including NVIDIA's Jensen Huang in San Francisco. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min takes a closer look.
The president's meeting with 4 major tech firms includes big names: NVIDIA's Jensen Huang, OpenAI's Sam Altman, Anthropic's Dario Amodei, and Broadcom's Hock Tan.
Anthropic and OpenAI are the 2 biggest AI service providers. NVIDIA is the largest AI-related GPU supplier, and Broadcom also is a major player in AI-related semiconductors and software.
President Lee Jae-myung will also hold an AI summit in San Francisco on Friday, attended by Samsung's Lee Jae-yong, SK's Choi Tae-won, Hyundai Motors' Chung Hui-sun, and Naver's Lee Hae-jin, along with the U.S. big tech CEOs. MOUs will be signed between Korean firms and the global tech firms, and President Lee will announce his AI vision for related global cooperation.
Major Korean firms and global big tech firms will gather together. It will be a chance to expand our vision for the 3 mega projects on a global level.
Experts also point out the need for greater cooperation in software amid the intensifying global AI race.
Korea right now is very strong in AI, partially because we have memory chips, but not any higher level GPUs or software. So the president may be asking for cooperation in Korea, trying to expand into this more difficult technical areas.
After wrapping up his U.S. trip, President Lee will pay a state visit to Brazil for a summit with President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. He will then head to Santiago to meet his Chilean counterpart, José Antonio Cast, who took office in March, before flying to Buenos Aires to meet Argentine President Javier Milei. The trip aims to expand trade and investment with the South American bloc, while strengthening partnerships on economic security and energy. On the way home, the president will stop by Germany to meet Koreans residing in that country. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
As we just heard, President Lee Jae-myung embarks on his 11-day trip to the U.S. and South America today, with his first step in San Francisco to hold a series of meetings with the CEOs of major tech companies. For more on what to look out for, we're joined today by Professor Kim Dong-soo, professor at the Division of International and Area Studies at Pugyang National University. Professor Kim, thanks for coming on this morning.
Good morning.
So, Professor, President Lee opens this trip in San Francisco, where he's set to meet the CEOs of AI giants like NVIDIA, OpenAI, and Anthropic. So, what can Korea hope to walk away with from these meetings, and how significant would it be if these talks produce long-term investment deals rather than just symbolic agreements?
I think President Lee's meetings with the CEOs of NVIDIA, OpenAI, and Anthropic could help South Korea secure stronger access to AI chips, computing infrastructures, joint research, and advanced AI technology. These partnerships would support South Korea's goal of becoming a leading AI hub and strengthen its competitiveness across key industries. The key question is whether these meetings lead to a concrete investment rather than just a symbolic agreements. While memorandums of understanding are politically meaningful, long-term commitments such as AI data centers, research labs and infrastructural investment would have a much greater economic impact by creating jobs, attracting further investment, and boosting Korea's long-term AI competitiveness.
Right, so from there, the president heads on to Brazil for a state visit, and officials have said talks may include reviving trade negotiations. So how central is Brazil to Korea's broader strategy of diversifying its critical mineral supply chain?
Brazil is a key partner in Korea's strategy to diversify its critical mineral supply chain. As one of the world's leading producers of lithium, nickel, graphite, and other rare earth minerals, Brazil offers Korea an opportunity to reduce its dependence on a limited number of suppliers and secure more stable access to essential resources for batteries and semiconductors. If the two countries revive trade negotiations and strengthen cooperation on critical minerals, Korea could secure more reliable supply chains while expanding economic ties with Latin America. Long-term agreements in mining and resource development would also enhance Korea's energy security and support the growth of its electric vehicle and high-tech industries.
Right, and continuing on with his, tour in the South Americas, President Lee will also move on to meet with the newly inaugurated president of Chile to discuss modernizing the two countries' free trade agreement. And notably, Chile was Korea's very first FTA partner. So what does modernizing that agreement actually mean in practice, and why does the timing, so soon after Chile's new government took office, matter?
Modernizing the Korea-Chile FTA means updating the agreement to reflect today's economy rather than the trade environment of 20 years ago. In practice, this could include the expanding cooperation in digital trade, critical minerals, and clean energy investment and supply chain resilience, while also improving market access and updating outdated trade rules. The timing is also very significant because meeting Chile's newly inaugurated president allows both countries to set the agenda early in the new administration. It creates an opportunity to strengthen bilateral ties from the outset and move forward with the FTA upgrades that support Korea's long-term economic and supply chain strategy, particularly in securing critical minerals for high-tech industries.
Right, and finally, on the last leg of his South America's tour, the president travels to Argentina, which marks the first visit by a Korean head of state that in more than 2 decades. So what do you think has driven this renewed interest in Buenos Aires after such a long gap, and what would you watch for during this trip?
Argentina has regained South Korea's attention because it holds some of the world's largest reserves of critical minerals, especially lithium, which is essential for electric vehicle batteries and other high-tech industries. The visit also reflects South Korea's broader strategy of expanding economic partnerships in Latin America and reducing dependence on a limited number of resource suppliers. To judge whether this visit delivers real economic results, I would look for concrete outcomes such as investment agreements in lithium or energy projects, or long-term supply contracts, joint ventures between Korean and Argentine companies. These tangible commitments would have a much greater impact than the symbolic diplomatic announcements.
Well, Professor Kim, it looks like there's a lot to watch out for during this trip. Thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
US President Donald Trump is warning of an unprecedented military attack against Iran as regional tensions escalate. In an interview with Axios released on Thursday local time, Trump stated he is close to a decision on strikes that would be bigger than ever before. He noted that while Israel would join immediately if asked, the US is capable of acting alone. This comes as the US House passed a resolution requiring congressional approval for war with Iran. Meanwhile, the Reuters exclusive reports that Tehran is actively strengthening its Houthi allies in Yemen. According to sources speaking to Reuters, Iran secretly flew Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commanders, missile equipment and gold into Yemen on July 13th to bolster Houthi operations. The Trump administration has finalized new tariffs of up to 12.5% on South Korea and other trading partners, citing concerns over forced labor. The move replaces temporary global duties and adds to Washington's broader push to reshape its trade policy following the collapse of its earlier reciprocal tariffs. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The Trump administration has announced its final decision to impose tariffs of up to 12.5% on imports from South Korea, Japan, and dozens of other trading partners over concerns that they have not done enough to prevent goods made with forced labor from entering their markets. The Office of the U.S. Trade Representative said the new duties, ranging from 10 to 12.5%, follow investigations into 60 economies under Section 301 of the 1974 Trade Act. The new tariffs are set to replace the temporary 10% global tariffs that expire Friday, which were introduced after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the Trump administration's country-specific reciprocal tariffs in February. Last month, the USTR had already proposed a 12.5% tariff on South Korea and several other economies based on its preliminary findings. Seoul strongly opposed the proposal during the public consultation process, arguing that the planned tariff was both unwarranted and disproportionate given South Korea's existing efforts to combat forced labor and regulate imports. Meanwhile, the USTR is also carrying out separate Section 301 investigations into South Korea, China, Japan, and 13 other economies over what it describes as unfair trade practices tied to structural overcapacity and excess production. The latest measures reflect the administration's broader effort to establish new trade restrictions after its earlier reciprocal tariff policy was invalidated by the courts. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The U.S. Treasury Department is keeping South Korea on its foreign exchange monitoring list. In its semi-annual report to Congress released on Thursday local time, the Treasury maintained its watch list of 10 major trading partners, which also includes China, Japan, and Germany. South Korea was temporarily excluded in November 2023, its first removal since 2016, but was reinstated a year later. Economies are monitored if they meet 2 of 3 U.S. criteria: a bilateral trade surplus of at least $15 billion, a current account surplus of at least 3% of GDP, or a persistent one-sided intervention in currency markets. The Korean government has decided to extend the temporary fuel tax cuts for an additional 2 months through the end of September. According to the Ministry of Finance and Economy on Friday, the current reduction rates for fuel taxes, which were originally set to expire at the end of this month, will remain unchanged. By fuel type, the rates are 15% for gasoline and 25% for diesel and butane through September. Officials explained that they decided to keep the tax reduction buffer in place, taking into account the geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. Foreign Minister Cho Yeon has wrapped up 2 days of ASEAN-related meetings in Manila, rallying regional support for Seoul's diplomatic priorities and expanding cooperation on economic and security challenges. Oh Si-young reports.
Foreign ministers from across the Indo-Pacific have called for renewed dialogue with North Korea, while reaffirming the need for denuclearization and compliance with UN Security Council resolutions. The message came at the ASEAN Regional Forum in Manila, the region's only multilateral security forum in which both Korea and North Korea are members, although Pyongyang stayed away for a second consecutive year. Foreign Minister Cho Yeon said on Thursday that peace and stability on the Korean peninsula remains essential to regional security and prosperity. He said Seoul would keep walking towards peaceful coexistence and shared growth, but stressed that one-sided efforts cannot succeed. Cho called on Pyongyang to respond to Seoul's efforts to resume dialogue and cooperation and urged the ASEAN Regional Forum to play a constructive role in reducing tensions. Many of the 27 participating members expressed concern over North Korea's continued nuclear and missile development. They emphasized both the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and the importance of bringing Pyongyang back to dialogue. The meeting also adopted the Manila Plan of Action, setting out the forum's direction for confidence building, preventive diplomacy, and security cooperation for the next decade. At the East Asia Summit Foreign Ministers meeting later in the day, Cho again sought support for resolving Korea Peninsula issues through dialogue and diplomacy. On the South China Sea, he stressed that freedom of navigation and overflight must be guaranteed, and that any code of conduct should comply with international law and protect the rights of third countries. Participants also called for unhindered humanitarian assistance in Myanmar, while expressing concern over renewed tensions around the Strait of Hormuz. Cho said the free and safe passage of all vessels must be protected in international waters. The meetings followed the ASEAN +3 Foreign Ministers meeting, where Korea, Japan and China discussed closer cooperation with the 11 ASEAN members. Amid growing geopolitical and economic uncertainty, Cho proposed strengthening practical cooperation in areas including supply chains, digital transformation and responses to regional challenges. Wrapping up his Manila schedule, Cho co-chaired the Korea-Mekong Foreign Ministers meeting with his Thai counterpart. Marking 15 years of cooperation, the two sides adopted a statement outlining priorities for the next 5 years. These include digital innovation, climate resilience and smart agriculture, backed by Korean development assistance and the Korea-Mekong Cooperation Fund. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
For our special coverage of the 48th session of UNESCO's World Heritage Committee in Busan, Cho Young-eun takes us to the Intangible Cultural Heritage Festival, taking place alongside the event, offering exhibitions, performances, and hands-on experiences celebrating Korea's living traditions.
Traditional Korean vocal music comes alive through contemporary stage language. The performers say intangible heritage is sustained not only by preserving its music and techniques, but also by passing on its values and spirit from one generation to the next.
To ensure these traditions are carried on by future generations, understanding of their original forms must be developed first. At the same time, they also need the artistic vision to engage and communicate with today's audiences.
One of the highlights is a performance inspired by the elegant lines of Korea's traditional craftsmanship, where dancers transform the making of the traditional kat into the visual language of movements. The creative team says they sought to preserve the tradition without making it feel like something of the past. They aim to create a performance that audiences can embrace naturally.
Intangible heritage carries a quiet beauty and a profound sense of dignity. It is neither flashy nor exaggerated, yet the longer you experience it, the more deeply it stays with you. I hope audiences will remember it not only for its beauty, but also for the significance and weight it carries.
Each performance has been reinterpreted through newly arranged music and choreography, showing that intangible heritage continues to evolve through time and new artistic influences.
The lion dance is known for its sweeping mane and dynamic movements. With newly arranged music, we redesigned the choreography and stage movements while ensuring they remain true to tradition.
Structured around 7 interconnected themes and featuring master artisans from across Korea, every artistic decision was guided by one principle: preserving the essence of intangible heritage while expressing it in a modern way.
Our main goal was to reinterpret intangible heritage in a contemporary way while fully preserving the beauty of its essence. We also worked to create a modern visual language through the lighting and stage design.
The spirit of UNESCO comes alive through the shared values of harmony and coexistence. Running through July 29, the Intangible Cultural Heritage Festival showcases the artistic value of Korean heritage and its potential to inspire people today. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News, Busan.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. In the U.S., the number of people filing new claims for unemployment benefits dropped last week to its lowest level since 1969. Initial claims fell by 22,000 to 187,000 for the week, ending July 18th, far below the 212,000 economists had expected. It's the biggest one-week drop in 3 months. Economists warn some of the drop reflects a seasonal quirk and expect claims to bounce back toward the low 200,000s next week. Continuing claims fell to a 6-week low, and June's unemployment rate dipped to 4.2%, a one-year low. Heading into next week's policy meeting, Federal Reserve officials are keeping their focus on inflation, which remains above their 2% target. The European Central Bank held its benchmark interest rate steady on Thursday, but left the door open to further increases as widening Middle East conflict keeps pushing energy prices higher. The ECB kept its deposit rate at 2.25%, saying it's, quote, closely monitoring the shock from the conflict and its ripple effects on the economy. Financial markets are pricing in roughly 2 more rate hikes by the end of the year, with the next possible move at the ECB's September meeting. The bank's president said risks to the inflation outlook are tilted higher, warning the energy shock could intensify and spill over into broader prices and wages. The European Union has fined Google $1 billion for favoring its own services over rivals. The decision on Thursday is the company's first penalty under the bloc's Digital Markets Act. EU regulators found Google gives its own products more prominent placement in the search results than competitors get. A separate fine targeted restrictions on the Google Play App Store that blocked developers from steering customers to cheaper deals elsewhere. Google said it's reviewing the decision and considering an appeal. The company now has 60 days to fall in line or risk a fine worth up to 5% of its global revenue. Regulators said Google has already progressed changes and called it, quote, substantial progress toward compliance, making further fines unlikely for now.
Sunshine is trying hard to break through the clouds in Seoul, and temperatures are rising quickly. Hot and humid conditions will continue across most of the country today, with the heat becoming uncomfortable. And heat wave alerts have been expanding to more regions, and that's including here in the capital. And Pohang in Gyeongsang-do province could see a high of 38 degrees Celsius this afternoon, so please stay hydrated and avoid outdoor activities. Meanwhile, the central region will remain under the influence of the monsoon front. Northern parts of Gangwon-do province could receive up to 80 millimeters of heavy showers, while parts of southern regions could see some passing showers during the day today. And this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 32 degrees Celsius, Gwangju and Jeju at 34 degrees, but Daegu and Gyeongju will be sizzling hot at 36 degrees Celsius. On and off rain will affect the capital area through early next week. And once the monsoon rain clears out of Central Korea on Monday, a more intense heat wave is expected to settle in.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.